Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me, Kasha.
Of course,
And
pleasure.
yeah, it's always cool. It's a great opportunity to go through what I'm gonna be showing a slice of my trajectory. So it's always as a visual artist, and it's always cool to see the big picture. Um, but also, I don't want to make this too much about myself. So feel free to stop me, interrupt, ask questions, and say, I don't know, say your thoughts and feelings and ideas, all that. My name is Lucas. I'm a visual artist born in Brazil, living in New York for almost three years now. I moved here like 1 week before everything shut down, and I've been I'm a self-taught visual art, multidisciplinary visual artist. So it's really cool to be here talking in a university. Uh, I didn't finish my studies at college. I went for audio visual, but I don't know. I needed to work, all that. I got a job in the big city, so I ended up learning by working. And it kept being like that. I'm really interested in academia. I think it's wonderful. I consider going back all the time, but I don't know. Like the way things have been working, it's like I'm always learning by making, and it's been like that since very young. Like my work, I started like my first contacts with visual art were through music. Like I was a young kid obsessed with music, obsessed with punk music. That was the thing in my hometown when I was young, and I was trying to play in bands, and I I I had like I don't know, like maybe I didn't have the self esteem. I thought I wasn't good enough. My bands were not working, and I had so much love for that that I felt like I needed to express it somehow. So I was really frustrated for not being able to put that out, to give back to all that music that had influenced me. So with that, I was like, all right, I gotta do something. So I started writing and writing reviews about bands and making drawings. And I started making some zines. And that was like my first, the first time I saw Photoshop, the first time I started like cutting and pasting images to arrange in a zine. Hold on, let me turn this off. Okay. Um, and that was so that I made some really bad zines, but they were I don't know, somehow that was like the first motion. Somehow that like it wasn't good, but I started learning. So I knew the basics of Photoshop. I knew the basics of collage. Um, then my father gave me a camcorder, and that was in 2002. Like I was 19 years old. So my father gave me a camcorder, and I was like, all right, this is great. I'm gonna film my friends doing their art and playing in bands. So I started making like documentaries about like my heroes, and so I made a bunch of really lo-fi documentaries. Like I wasn't scanning the fruit like the documents because it was gonna take too long. Just like filming with my hand camera and like super lo-fi stuff. and then I learned a lot. Then I was like, all right, so I I could do that. Like I can do that, and it was really cool. Like that was a way that I found to be like to make friends, to communicate. I wasn't making my art, but I was making my art, but no one was seeing it. I was like first giving it back, and then I learned that if you want to do stuff, it's a good way to give first and then ask. You know, after that, people I had like I was part of a community. I was I don't know. I was being invited to show my own work. So I started like making graphics for bands also and for my own stuff. Also, again, this is way after like 2012. Um, this is how can I say? This was like an LP for a band of friends. This was a poster that came inserted in the LP. Then I started like trying to make motion images with images that I made for the band. Like here. So at that time, I was focused on making graphics for bands. Uh, so I was making T-shirts, designed for T-shirts, cassette tapes, flyers for shows. This became like a on the right. It became like a T-shirt. It was a lot of collage, hand cut, hand paste, but also a lot of uh, Photoshop. I would like, for instance, this was hand drawn, hand cut, and then colored in Photoshop, and it was. Hold on, it's not playing. Well, I guess it's not loading, but it's a motion thing that was used in a Cartoon Network TV show. Cartoon Network, yeah. So I thought it was cool to just like you have the resources. I was really into doing stuff with my hands, but also like why not use the digital tools if they're there and it's gonna make it easier. I was doing merchandise for bands like patches, pins. Uh, this was a logo type I did for this record store. And this is the image that I saw. I was studying this Brazilian modernist called Geraldo de Barros, and I was really interested in this movement of Brazilian modernism called concretismo, neoconcretismo. So I saw this image, I was like, oh, this looks like an A letter, or maybe a C if you rotate it. Oh, maybe I can create letters with this. So I sketched this, and it became like the logo type for the record store. Like this is a record cover, the front and the back, inspired by optical art. Like I use the same patterns in the front and the back, just like a translucent, transparent, not translucent, transparent thing. And the same pattern is printed in the record. It's a 7 inches vinyl record. So whenever you pull the record out, it creates this moire effect that has to do with the sounds of the band. Mm, I started getting really into optical art, like making tapes. this is like I when I moved to New York, we started our soccer team. That's like punk kids playing soccer. It's the AFC, and we were like we made jerseys. Like I'm really interested in the idea of branding and logo types to move ideas and move people and movements and all that. So yeah, this all of these I was showing my art more like in inside of a community or yeah inside of a community, and in that same effort, I felt like when I was young, I wanted to have more chances to show my work, and I was seeing a lot of people that I felt like they were feeling the same thing. So I decided to start a publishing and record label. That was in 2014. It was called Holo Seco. That's like dry roll in English. Doesn't make much sense in English. So we started like we this label. We were putting out visual art made by musicians and putting out records made by visual artists. It works like in the and also a lot of hybrid objects. It works like in the place between visual and sound art. So we were like screen printing these big posters at home, a big mess. This is my friend's home. That's my partner called Mateus. Um, and we were doing all this, and we were doing for every new release, we would do a gig. We're showing the visual and the sounds, the bands of the artists that were involved. And that was really cool. Like there was a lot of young kids that didn't didn't see themselves as an artist, but were drawing, and they were excited about being part of something. So we were like making shows in all types of places. Like these were two galleries, art galleries. This was like a train stop in the top. These were this was really cool. Like this guy's a good friend of mine. This is his daughter, his wife. They were playing his music of the album, this album that he just put out. Like every record that we put out, we always had to have like some type of original artwork somehow. So this guy is a maniac. He made like 300 handmade collages and inserted them in the records. I was like, damn, great job. Um, these were 7 inches square records, transparent, that in one side the artist made their visual work, and the other side there's no art, there's just the sound. So it has like both things. It has the music and it has the sound in one object. You can put it in the wall or you can play however you feel. So yeah, all the collages and the records. These
Any
were all.
questions? Anybody? Like at some point, are you interested in anything in particular that Lucas has been showing? If you are, you can just, jump in with the question.
Yeah, yeah. So that was cool, like being able to work with people that you love and admire the work, bringing people together. It was all supposed to be affordable and like because most of these artists they sell they're like already established, so they at this time they had like their value market value was really high. So we managed to do these pieces that anyone could have an original work. These are the records. Like we were also like making. This is a good friend of ours, lixeiro. That means trash man. He he was like handmaking these t-shirts and selling on the streets. He's an old punk from Brazil. So we're like, dude, let's make 150 of really cool bands and sell to all the hipsters, and you're gonna cash it. And it was like, oh my god! So it was really cool. We made his show. His family came. Was was really really cool. Um, so yeah, then I thought I was like, okay, I'm tired of living in São Paulo. I love it, but I want to move on. And I was like, how am I gonna do it? So I was talking to some kids from New York, and they showed interest in coming to Brazil. So I was like, that's it. I'm gonna make your show here, and you make my show in New York. So we started making these moves, and we made this show that's called NYC Kiss, New York Kiss. It had like works from Robin Pack. She makes like claymation, like big, crazy animations made of clay. This is Sam Reiser, born in Brooklyn. He makes like designs for skateboards, punk stuff, bands, and it's all like also handmade, hand drawn. It's a lot of work. Eugene Terry, same thing, great guy. And I don't know, that was cool because we became really good friends, and they when I moved here, I already had like friends, family, community, and it helped me a lot. Besides then going to Malger, that was great also. Malger is where Kasha used to live and where I live. Okay, so that back then, coming back to my work, I was doing my own collages, not related to music, just like for fun, putting old objects that I found, wrapped papers, all that stuff, influenced by Dada stuff, Dadaism. Then, then still in the idea of creating community or creating a world, I started doing this more conceptual works that's called anarquismo espiritual, spiritual anarchism. That's about everything that you can touch but is there to be established. Like it's not here, but you can. If you can imagine, we can find ways to create it as an artist. Or so I made a series of flags with logo types, still working on this idea of branding and propaganda that comes like from punk flyers, that comes from all this old stuff that I was doing before. So it's like with that, I was invited to go to Bogota and make an art residency and present in in the national art fair there. That's like a big fair in Colombia, Bogota. So we made like a spaceship, made clothes, and got like I we all worked together. I didn't want to make it too much about me. So we got like bands playing, and it's like a big. Like the more people you can involve, the I feel like the bigger the thing is. So I made these videos using like an analog mixer, some outdated technologies, and it was really cool. Everyone was performing, having fun, video projections, video feedback. Um, it was like a very beautiful experience to be able to spend 2 weeks in Bogota sharing and talking and having fun. yeah, and it all comes from this first movement of giving and like free giving, but it always comes back. It's action and reaction, right? So yeah, everyone's in New York. Everyone wants to show their own work. Everyone's like super. Oh, I'm a big artist, but like things are so competitive that I don't know. Like I think it's easier to force, give, and then get it back. That's what I, looking back in all these years, that's what I kind of like learned from it. A bunch of conceptual works, and then like I started work after doing these videos and this graphic art. My work naturally evolved to moving image, to this place between video and graphic art. So I started doing like this optical art pieces. It's like it's one image that I use this filter found in old televisions and duplicates the image. Depends on where you see it, it has a different shape. Uh, Still very much like a logo type or a very simple image. Still inspired by this Brazilian modernism that I was reading into. Um, this is where my personal work is now. Uh, but like then recollecting all these works and looking at this body of work and everything that I was doing all this time, I started noticing that one of my, it's hard to know yourself. It's hard to know what you're good at, especially because when you're good at something you don't really care about, you don't really notice. It's just natural. So like it's cool to put all these works together because you see where you did a good move, where you did it, where things didn't work. And I noticed that for me, I'm naturally good at connecting people and putting people together. So I started, now I'm working on this that's called Selva, and that's where I'm putting my energy. It's like Selva, it's an art gallery that we are opening in Brooklyn, and it's, these are not the official graphics. This is just like this. I'm still working on the final graphics, but it's like it's art gallery that's gonna work with artists from South America that I met through my label or through my personal art, and people that I know from New York, building this bridge between South and North America. So yeah, I don't have money. I have some money, but I'm not rich. I can't open a gallery. It's not gonna work if I do because I don't have like the clientele or the money. But as I said, like can I can talk to people and I can bring people together. So I wrote like during COVID, I thought about like what should I do? I don't want to waste my time, and this is what made more sense to me. So I just wrote a simple idea and presented to three different people, and they were like, "Oh, that's great. Let's do it. I'm putting the money." I was like, "Oh, great." Um, so yeah, if you have ideas, you can always find people that have money but and want to do stuff but are not that creative, or you know, it's always a good trade. There's always ways to make things. Um, and yeah, that's where I'm working now. It's called Selva, together with my personal artwork. that's always going to be there. But I'm thinking that my personal artwork is going to become something collective, not about me, not like my expression of things, but a collective expression of ideas and thoughts and angst, all that. This is my band. We made this video also using outdated analog technologies together with digital technologies. So this is all like a live feedback. We were filming and projecting what we were filming at the same time. The band's called duplo, that means double. Yeah. So no.
Anybody has any questions? Kaya.
Where do you find your inspiration?
I think it's through music. I'm always like, it's like everything can be inspiring, right? Like for me, first was music. That was hitting me very hard. Like every piece that I do, I think it's like a song inside of this series of works that's like an album. Like so I'm making this series, like I don't know, I was making like some boxes, and I was like, oh, this is like there's some repetition, so like, this repetition it's like a dub the reggae music, like with a delay pedal, boom, boom, boom. I don't know. All my inspiration usually comes from music and politics, but not all. Like that's the main source. Like I feel like music's like biggest connection with a higher thing. It's like the bridge to something bigger. But like everything, like you can go outside, you see like I really like seeing old signs. I really like going like in New York's full of like everything, like art is everywhere. Like museums are so overwhelming that I love going to museums, but I find more inspiration seeing signs on the streets. Like the other day I saw a plumbing company that had this funny guy. I was like, oh, that's beautiful, Like art is everywhere. It's like
Yeah.
it,
Any other
nature is
questions?
amazing, but we're in New York. There's not that much. It's
Yeah.
more human nature in New York.
Any other questions? Okay, Lucas, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me punish you guys.
Of course, always awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks again, Kasha. Thank you guys. If you have any other questions, just send me a message.
Okay. Bye, Lucas.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.